Welcome to the Marsha and Portia Project.
Episode 3, take 2.
Okay, we are going to continue in a part 2 from our previous episode in terms of carrying on some positive things that we can be proud of as Americans. Specifically, we are going to focus on positives from the last 4 years. Now, we know right away off the bat, there's been a lot of excessive hate, anger, frustration, confusion, and really just chaos surrounding this administration and a lot of the things that have happened. We are fully aware that there is a comprehensive list of offensive comments and some maybe crass or unprofessional statements that have been made.
Or tweets.
Tweets too. Something important to consider, though, is how our feelings and emotions are directed by the information that we have access to and the information that's really put out there by us. So knowing who controls that information is important. We have a whole episode that's going to talk about social media and the mainstream media and who's behind all of that. That'll be in the next week or so. But today we really just want to focus on the facts that are publicly available to us. And we're going to basically read you a list that we have compiled of incredible, effective, and monumental firsts that this administration has done for our country. So all of this information will be cited. We will be listing the sources for you in our comments. And then we are also going to provide this list for you in a shareable format on our post in the next week.
Yes, so we... Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. We just really feel that it's important to know these facts. Yeah. You may never have heard them before. And just to be able to compare some of the information you've received with what you're going to hear today.
Or not have received. I mean, a lot of this stuff, before we started doing research, I didn't know specifically. So a lot of this stuff you might have no idea has happened in the last 4 years and will continue to impact you and your family and future generations. So that's why we believe it's really important to know this stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to read you this list, and we're going to start. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this again.
Number 1. President Trump signed the Future Act, permanently providing $255 million annual STEM funding for minority-serving colleges, including approximately $85 billion for HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, which is huge.
So incredible. He signed the First Step Act, which has freed over 3,000 people from jail, over 91% of them being African American since 2018. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. He allocated $6 billion to help combat the opioid crisis, which is a huge plague on our country and especially our youth right now.
Absolutely. He also made CBD and hemp legal nationwide, which allows more research to be done on the benefits of both of those substances for medical research and actual medical conditions.
The administration made gag orders on pharmacists illegal, which now allows them to share ways that you can save money on your prescriptions.
Love that. Made an order to require healthcare providers to disclose the cost of services up front to their patients. I think we can all agree that that is a huge step in our insurance industry.
Created the Ready, Set, Prep, which provides roughly 200,000 uninsured individuals free access to the HIV prevention drug.
I mean, who knew there was a prevention drug?
I did not know that.
I didn't know either. I think this one's amazing. He appointed the first openly gay cabinet member, Rick Grinnell, to be the director of national intelligence. That is the highest ranking presidential nominee of an openly gay person in history.
Huge.
Yeah.
He is fighting currently for school choice, actively pushing legislation that would ensure no child is trapped in a failing school because of their zip code.
I love that. I also love this one. It's so good. He made animal cruelty. He signed an order to make animal cruelty a federal felony so that animal abusers can face tougher sentences and accountability for their crimes. And I think that right there is such a look into our character as a society that we care about.
And our values.
The most vulnerable. Yeah.
That is honestly something we can all get behind. I mean, all of the negative things people have to say about Trump aside, like that is something objectively positive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. He authorized $10 million a year to be dedicated to cleaning up our lakes and oceans.
Which is huge. The green, focusing on the green part of our country, he signed an order requiring airports to provide spaces for breastfeeding. That is incredible. A huge step for women's rights and especially for mothers and infants.
Created a 24/7 hotline staffed mainly by veterans to serve all of our veteran questions and concerns and direct them to resources. That's huge. I know you are in the military. My dad is a veteran and had to go through kind of bureaucracy to get benefits for.
It's a huge step.
It's been a giant nightmare, and I've had to help him. It's been like this 3-year process, and the whole time we were so frustrated about like the process, and so making these things easier for veterans is so huge.
Absolutely. We owe them so much. Number 14, made the Right to Try Act a standard. So this allows terminally ill patients to make their own choices about using investigational new drugs not yet approved by the FDA. So it allows them to make that choice with their provider, which is really great when you're looking at a terminally ill person who doesn't have many options and they want to be able to try something else.
This one is incredible, and I think not talked about enough.
Definitely
but he
not.
is fighting to decriminalize homosexuality in over 70 countries around the world.
And I just have to say, from my own travels, it is incredible the freedoms that we have here to be whoever we want,
To love who we want, to marry who we want.
And so some of my travels for my career have taken me into countries where, women are not accepted or viewed as equal, and certainly not openly gay members of society. So I think that is a huge, huge step.
Huge.
Yes. He's also created opportunity zones, which are projected to produce $100 billion in private investment in low-income communities. That's a huge incentive for business. If you don't know what opportunity zones are, when you hear people say that word,
This is a huge one.
please,
It's such a huge one.
please look it up. It's a huge incentive for people to bring their small businesses and open new businesses in places where previously, communities where previously there wasn't much available to them.
It impacts people's everyday livelihoods.
Absolutely.
It impacts their ability to provide for their families, to, chase the American dream.
Put food on the table.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. He signed an executive order to directly combat human trafficking and online child exploitation.
And as recently as this summer, they have deported tons, thousands of members from the MS-13 gang, mostly responsible for the human trafficking from the South American border up to us. So again, another thing, if you've never heard of, make sure you look that up. It's pretty incredible.
And this is an issue, I've always kind of known in the back of my head that this is an issue, and we've kind of been talked about, but in doing my research this year, it is terrible what's going on with human trafficking, and to have an administration that's committed to fighting for that is something that I'm proud of.
They have deported and put more people behind bars than any other administration. Yeah. Okay, number 18. Signed into law a bill that provides $1.8 billion in funding for autism research and services. And if you're a parent of a child with autism or a child that's been hurt with a vaccine injury, you know more than anyone how important this is.
He signed an executive order that improves the adoption and foster care system by increasing the resources available to both caregivers and children, including trauma training.
We have to support that. Number 20, Black, Asian, and Hispanic unemployment rates, these are just facts, have hit historic lows under this administration, which is meaning more people are working hard and being self-sufficient, which is something they can be proud of and pass on to their children.
This is huge. And again, something that is not talked about. He launched a new initiative working directly with interested employers who want to hire newly released inmates.
How incredible.
I know.
I love that. And kudos to you small businesses who are taking that initiative.
Instead of keeping them in jail.
To give them a second chance. Yeah. 22, we're halfway there, okay? Close to 7 million people have stopped using food stamps. This means that people are becoming more self-sufficient, as we mentioned, which is the original point of the program.
The child tax credit was doubled from $1,000 to $2,000 per qualifying child, providing more money to working families.
24, actively fighting to keep taxpayer money out of the abortion industry, which we know is a hot topic.
Yeah.
We all believe, I think for the most part, in freedom of choice, and whether that's medical or otherwise, but allowing people to make those own choices and allowing the religious freedom for those who are uncomfortable with that choice.
The president allocated $50 billion to address the infrastructure needs of rural American communities.
Who are often overlooked, even though they are the backbone of this country.
The flyover states.
Began building and enhancing the wall on our southern border, also a hot topic, but whose sole purpose is to protect our country from invasions, specifically child trafficking and illegal drugs, which goes hand in hand with the opioid crisis. We have seen vast numbers of opioids and ingredients come over our southern border. And think about it like this. This is no different from how your backyard has a fence. You have a lock on your front door. You lock your car. This is protecting our home. It's protecting our backyard. It's protecting our
people,
children.
our family, our American family.
Yes.
He established the 1 trillion trees Interagency Council with the goal of planting and growing 1 trillion new trees worldwide by 2030.
I love that. And that is actually a global initiative that this administration started. An executive order was signed modernizing and conserving our water resource management and infrastructure related to efficiency in water distribution, which I think is fantastic. It goes along with cleaning up our lakes and oceans. It is an effort on the part of this administration to be responsible to our earth.
Which I think is huge because a lot of people position the president and this administration as, anti-environmentalist.
Absolutely.
Which, again, if you look at the facts and look at what he's actually doing, we have all these initiatives to protect our home and our earth.
And it's going to get better. Yeah.
He signed an executive order protecting infant children born with a disability, giving them the same dignity and rights as any children.
I love that. He signed a thorough and extensive executive order combating specifically race and gender stereotypes. You guys need to read this one. It was an executive order. You can find it on whitehouse.gov. We will list this in the comments. It was passed this past September 22nd. And I think this is huge in terms of the race issues in this country.
He initiated and facilitated and hosted the signing of the Abraham Accords. Okay, so I'm going to let you talk about this one because you know a little bit more. Sarah's done a lot of research into this.
So we talk all the time, peace in the Middle East. It's a fun little saying. It's on t-shirts and all of that kind of stuff. But this hasn't been talked about at all this year.
No.
There have been historic peace treaties made that have not been made in generations, I think 40 years. Multiple peace treaties made. So most of them started with the Abraham Accords because obviously a lot of these are between Israel and their Islamic neighbors. But the point that you need to take away is that the Middle East, they are finally in a state of mutual respect and understanding for the most part because we have an administration who facilitated a regional transformation, and really it affected the geopolitical climate like we haven't seen in decades. Literally a full generation has never seen this level of peace. So there is an agreement between Israel and Sudan, Israel and the UAE, Israel and Bahrain, and then we also most recently just acknowledged Morocco, and the peace treaties it's just insane what's happening over there. So the whole peace in the Middle East, guys, it's happening. It is happening right now in front of our faces. It's amazing.
And I love that our administration is certainly pro-military, but not pro-foreign engagements that are without purpose,
Absolutely.
I think,
and thousands of troops are being withdrawn right now, coming home for Christmas, coming home in the next year. And this is huge to remove some of our involvement with some of these other countries as we help them sign their own peace treaties to work together on their own economics, their own aerospace environments, and their own future as they collaborate as nations on their own without United States interference. Yeah.
Okay, he appointed the first ever African American, also a female, to be the director of the National Fish and Wildlife Service.
So cool.
Aurelia Skipwith.
I love that. He approved the largest paid parental leave program ever, guaranteeing 12 weeks of paid parental leave for federal workers. And hopefully we'll see some more of that follow suit on the non-federal side as well.
He directed over $200 million per year to technology education grants for students.
He signed the Inspire Act, supporting women in programs that encourage women's participation in STEM and specifically aerospace careers. That had a lot to do with NASA, actually.
He signed 4 total executive orders to massively lower prescription drug prices, including insulin.
And I forget the statistic on how many Americans are insulin dependent, but that is huge for families that have more than one diabetic in the home. This kind of goes along with that. Number 40, an executive order was signed to eliminate kickbacks to middlemen when it comes to specifically Medicare patients paying too high a cost for prescriptions. So something I wasn't familiar with is that there's a lot of rebates that happen in the prescription drug process. And unfortunately, it's affecting the taxpayer who's having to pay the most. So we kind of eliminated that whole middle section so that people can get direct access to the prescription drugs that they need without the high cost. So that is incredible. And you guys, this is just 40 things. We are truly just scratching the iceberg. There are excessive and more detailed accounts of executive orders that have been signed, more details on the peace treaties. I think there have been advancements in almost every sector under this administration. And so when you look at those facts, it can be quite calming and give you a sense of like, oh wow, things are actually really happening for good. And these are things that are going to affect our children and future generations, hopefully in a positive way.
And the reason kind of we want to talk about this and give you facts is, so from a personal perspective, you know, I spoke about this a little bit in our intro video, but, you know, I was raised conservative and I've always kind of held conservative beliefs, but I've always kind of had trouble being able to defend those beliefs, because I feel like sometimes as conservatives, you really have to be able to defend your beliefs. And I think before I started doing my research on what this administration has done factually, it was kind of easy for me to slink back and like not be proud of the fact that I am a supporter of the Trump administration, and I'm proud of our president, and I'm grateful for the things that he's done. And I think equipping ourselves with these facts, these are not, you know, arguments about his policy. These are things he has actually done in the 4 years that he's been in office that are truly incredible for our country,
Absolutely.
we believe. And so kind of one of the aims of this video is to educate you, but to also equip you with the knowledge and the tools to defend your beliefs, and to be able to say, you know, like, of course there are some truly, you know, unfortunate things that are happening right now, and we do not live in a perfect country, but we have a president who is fighting for our country, who's fighting for our individual liberties, and who is making choices that impact and better our lives as Americans.
And really a diverse administration and cabinet who support those initiatives and are seeking to uphold the American dream. So I think what we'll end with is the big picture question here. We all know a lot of the negatives. We all know a lot of the problems. But why aren't we more familiar and better versed with the positives that are happening? You know, we talked about this in the last episode, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So the question is, why are we only focusing on the negative and coming into this dark place where we feel so sad and overwhelmed, when we really have a lot of things to kind of counterbalance that, to give us hope and a sense of national pride? So as I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about the media and who controls access to information. But we want to leave you with that question today. If these are things you haven't heard before, or you didn't even know had happened, as you know, we didn't even until a few short months ago, ask yourself why that is. So, and as always, we will leave you all of our sources, and we will document all of this for you in our posts. So thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.